Hi, Frank Soodle here, December 6th, 2020, and today I'll draw a Tauntaun, one of those snow creatures from Star Wars Empire Strikes Back. So let's get started. I have an idea of what the Tauntaun, the features is kind of like almost like a big, almost like a big rat standing up. And so what I'll do, and their eyes are kind of human, they have almost like human eyes. So I always like to start with the eyes. I'm not sure how this is going to turn out, but we'll give it a try. I've never drawn one, but I do have an idea that they usually have four nostrils, which is pretty cool, so I'll draw those so I don't forget. And then they have like a not too long of a snout, so I'll just do something similar to that. And they have these giant horns on the side of their head that look really pretty awesome, and they extend out pretty far, almost like a death claw from Fallout 3. But I think that's the general look of it, and I'll put the little mouth in there and then put that there. And one thing I really like about the Tauntaun is it's like perfect for winter and the snow and this time of year, to see them almost like a reindeer in the Star Wars universe. So with this one, I'll have the eyes looking to the left, and then I'll leave a little bit of coloration for the eye. I gotta get really close in there when I fill that in. But so far it seems okay. I think I'm getting the idea of it. It's not the easiest creature to draw, but I just before I started drawing, I studied the creature and the shape of it, and the limbs, and the way all the features work on the Tauntaun, and that from different angles you see it, and that'll really give you a good idea when you're drawing it, how to where to put the lines and how to draw it. I mean, it's not going to be 100% accurate, but only because I'm going based off memory. So it's just a cartoon anyway, so it doesn't have to be perfect. That's my excuse with cartoons. You get kind of a free pass to not have to worry about perfection. Plus, it's an imaginary creature, so it doesn't have to be perfect in that sense either. But right now I'm just improvising, going where I think the lines would be, and I know they have like little ears, so let me get one of those in there. There we go. Put the other one back there. And for this, I think I should, not going to have anybody sitting on the Tauntaun, but what I'll do here, I'm just going to draw the torso of the tauntaun now. I don't want to undersize the chest of the creature, but their hands are almost like little triceratops. They're kind of like small hands. So we'll just put those in there. This pen is so much better for this critter program that I'm working in. So one of the challenges now is how do I fit the whole creature in? And what I'll do is I'll arch his back over here. What I do want to do is add a saddle, because they look so cool with the saddle on. So I'm just going to improvise what I think the saddle looked similar to, and let's go from there. So we'll just put that in there, and some general idea of what the saddle might look like. I'm not just making it up as I go. So with these little lines here, what that'll do is add a little bit of dimension to the drawing. And then, let's see, yeah, it's getting a little, I need to bring this picture up a little. It's a little bit cornered right now. I'm not going to be able to fit his legs in there. I got to actually lift the image up. I forget what button lifts the whole thing up. I think it's the hand tool. I got to see if I can find it. Let's see if... No, that didn't work. Darn it, I'm not sure. So what I could do... See, I'm out of room down there. I need to get him further up. What I could do is go into this layer. If I could just lift the whole layer up. I'm not sure how to do that though. I just draw in this program. I hardly ever use it for other stuff. So I'll just keep drawing. See, the problem is I narrowed myself into this corner, and now what my solution will be is I'll have him sitting down. Sort of sitting down, so I'm trying to visualize his legs right about here. So let me just get this part finished here, and now his leg, it's like almost like a Okay, so I finally figured out how to lift the 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 frame up, the image, so it's not stuck below, and it's actually it was actually the arrow tool. Was it the arrow tool? Well, I just added a minute ago, but the tool helped me to lift his torso, his frame up, so I could fit this leg in here. I was gonna do it the other way, where it was like all smashed in. Even now it's a little crunched in there, but I'll just work with what I have here. That's what you get when you don't plan it out well enough. I really like the way his face turned out, so I'm just going to keep going with it and just see what happens with this picture. The saddle is way off, so I have to go in and erase the second half of the saddle. So what I'll do is just go in really quick and take care of that right now. The erase tool is really helpful in this program. So there's the saddle again. The leg, I'm not sure. For a quick improvised leg, it gets the job done, so I'm not going to complain too much. There's like I remember there was like a little claw on his leg. I'll come back in and just clean that up there. So looking at this, I have to draw the tail now. And I'll just do the tail like that. It's just a pretty basic tail. That's not too bad. It's a little clumsy. But it gets the idea. It's like a cute type tauntaun. Nothing too realistic. So they are furry, and I'll draw some fur right here. And then I think they have like a, I think they call it like a bridle, where it allows the creature to have a like a rope in its mouth, which will allow the rider to control the direction of the tauntaun more easily. Just pull one side and it'll turn the tauntaun to the right. Direction that's being pulled. So that leg looks a little too big. I'm going to reduce it a little bit and start it out here. I'm going to go back in with the eraser. Just erase that part. See, I like to just go in on one take, and if I have to adjust it a little, that's no problem. But like some artists will do like a sketch and then try to erase the sketch lines and do all that stuff, but I just feel that takes too long. It's not as fun. So I just try try to get it all in the first shot. It's a lot more challenging because you gotta really think about the lines you're drawing, but it's fun. I really like drawing this way. So the biggest challenge with this fur right here, these big fur clumps, they're just to give it a little dimension. And then there we go, just a little dimension to the leg and a little bit of fur. And then with the hand, if you give them like little knuckles, they'll have like a furry look and a little more dimension too. So you could give them little lines there. But yeah, that's the general idea of it. I think that's not too bad. It's a little off, but what am I supposed to do? So let's see. I think his back would be closer here and merge out here. So the saddle has to come down a little. Saddle's kind of, I should have put the saddle in last. That's my mistake. So what I think I'll do is just go right in and do a quick erase. Let's fix that saddle. It's no big deal. I just gotta get the structure. Structure of the proportions correct. Just doing all this from memory, no reference or anything. That's a little weird looking. I think I'll just stick with that. Like I said, it's kind of like the body of a rat, and then the saddle I'll put here, and then try to loop it in through here, because it's going to have to secure itself on the tauntaun, and then just have this part go over there. And then I'll just clean this up a little. Yeah, usually I get it more accurate on the first try, but when I ran out of space, that totally cramped my whole plan. I should have really made the face a little bit smaller. But I'll just take a look at it and see how it turned out in just a couple seconds. So there's that part, and then that be the saddle. Well, it's supposed to be a saddle. Saddle's not the main problem here. Alright, so that's the general idea. Usually there's some kind of a buckle or something that would be there. But yeah, there we go. It's not too horrific. But they do have like little claws. I remember seeing that on their feet. So I'll just put that in there. They might have 4, but I'll just leave 3 for now. And then the hands, they might have fur on them, so I'll just leave it like that. So he's kind of like crouching down a little bit. It's a little rough, I'll be honest. This saddle, just not getting the feel of that. I think this saddle, I think this is the part that's bothering me right here. That was it right there. So let me just put that there. That's a little bit better. And then the neck seems a little too thick for him, for his character. I think that's a little better there, considering his proportions and all that stuff. So there we go. I think that's not too bad. What I'll do now is start to add the details, and the way I'll do that is duplicate the layer. So that layer there, oh yeah, you gotta go over here and press duplicate layer. So now I'm gonna go on the layer beneath, and the good thing about duplicating the layer, if you mess up, you got that other layer to have as a backup. So let's start painting this character. Usually I'll jump into GIMP, the program GIMP, but here I'll just give this a try today. So he's going to have a lot of snow on him, but generally a tauntaun is gray, so let's make him gray, and then we'll add the snow effect. We'll just paint that on top. So there we go, we're getting them colored in. This is the most fun part. Well, no, drawing is a ton of fun, but this part's fun too. Like I said, he looks kind of like a rat a little bit. Nothing at all against rats. Rats are really cute. If you get one of those fancy rats, they're really cute, some of them, and they're really gentle. I've held the fancy rats before, and they don't bite or anything, at least the ones I've seen. But let's see, this stirrup, or whatever, that under rope looks a little off, but I'm just gonna go with it. So next color will be this almost like I think it's like a burnt sienna color. We'll just use that for the rope. I'm basing it on the action figure more than the actual creature in the movie. I think their eyes are brown. I forget. I can make them brown. See, you gotta be really careful when you have like a real narrow spot like that. Might as well just go in there and paint it in with a brush. So let's get the... that's weird. Why did that happen? Let's get the tusk in there. Maybe a lighter brown. There we go. I forgot to paint that in. Let's go back in there and get that color again. There we go. And then the eyes, don't forget those. Maybe like a light blue. Oh, that's weird. Why is it doing that? Yeah, that's not bad. So this part, I think they have like a little bit of a overlap here. Kind of like that a little bit. I forget. I'm just trying to remember. I don't know. I think I'll just take that back out. I'll use shading to create that effect. So that's not too bad. Now what I want to do is isolate the outline. Oh yeah, I gotta paint these claws. So we'll just go back to that color and that was weird. So let's go back and paint these in. Slight delay from when I press the button to when it actually fills it in. That's interesting. See, if I had more room, I would have had the leg go extend down here, but I have to smash it in there. That's my fault. So now we're going to get the select tool. Get these intersections. And there we go. I think we have the wrong part selected, so we're going to do an invert. Select. Oh no, what did it do? I pressed the wrong button there. Alright, I think I got it now. I don't want it as a vector. Just bitmap, that's where you can do shading and stuff like that. Vector is more flat colors, at least from some of the older programs. So now we're going to paint this character, and what I'd like to do is start with the darker shade. But for this, we're gonna duplicate this layer. Go there and duplicate layer. That's like a backup. This way, if I mess it up, I could just go back. I'm gonna increase the size of the brush. Alright, it's too light. About 50%, I think, should be good. So this looks like it's going to be okay. Now I have to think of my light source. It's coming from the left. There we go. So that'll allow for some light to hit the top of the foot of this snow creature. for this part to give more dimension to the tail. You just go like that, and then for this we'll just highlight that a little bit. I notice if you lighten the pressure, you get a thinner line. That's pretty cool. You can't really do that in the GIMP program version that I have, I don't think. It's mostly limited. So there we go, we got the general idea of what I'm going for here. This, of course, you want to extend the shadow out a little bit more. And this part here, he's got a shadow underneath. And the horn will really cast a bigger shadow as well. And then the horn itself will have a shadow on there. So this is like the first layer of shadows. And I say the light's coming from the left side. There we go. And right there is where I could just use shadows to create that effect with his lip. There we go, that's what I was going for. One thing I get carried away with is sometimes I make the shadows too dark, and then you lose the color of the fur and the character and everything else. And because his right side is in shadow, we're just going to darken this part here. And then we can just extend that out over there, have this part be in shadow. And the eye. So it's getting there. It's fun to go through each section and bring it to life a little bit. And then, since we don't want his hand pressed right against his chest, you could add this shadow here. I kind of goofed it up a little bit with the layering. I'll go erase that and fix it up. There we go. See, I need to finish it all in one shot so I don't get that weird layering effect that I had there. There we go, that's what I was trying to do. But I let go before I was finished, and that's why you get that weird effect there. There we go. So then this arm, there we go there. Yeah, it's not too bad. It's getting there. It's not going to be perfect or anything like that. It's just fun little quick drawing. I don't know how long I've been drawing for right now, so it might not be quick, but it's fun. So there we go. I think we got the gist of what I'm going for here. I could come back in and darken some of this and overlap some of the shadows and stuff like that without getting too heavy with the shadows. One thing to consider is, do you want these lines to be really obvious? If not, you could always shade over them, or you could find a way to go in at first and not have the lines be so strong. In GIMP there's a dilate tool, and that will allow you to go in with a lighter line. It'll compress the line. It's a really cool, quick effect to lower the strength of the black lines without ruining the picture. So I use that more often if I want a slightly more realistic look to the character, like Jabba the Hutt, and then the Snow Beast. I did that. The Wampa. It like shrunk the power of the black lines a little bit. So right now we're just adding some fur, and it's just like little dashes. You're just creating little flick of the pen just to create some texture to this character. Nothing too fancy here. But it's just giving a general idea of what fur might look like on the TaunTaun. Yeah, when I was a kid, I saw Empire Strikes Back. I was like a tiny kid, and I do remember the Tauntauns being one of my favorite creatures. I even had the action figure toy, and it had the back where you put the character's legs in there, and I thought that was so cool. And then you would have the saddle on there, and then there was another one that his belly would open up, and you could put Luke Skywalker inside the belly, inside the belly of the beast. But there we go. Slowly getting there. These little fur lines give it a little bit extra dimension too, because you're adding textures that create a sense of surface, so it's not so flat. And then wherever you see a black line, you have to consider, well, do you want to just have a black line with no shadow, or do you want to add a shadow to that area? And where would the shadow go? So that's the idea there. And then what's nice about having opacity, like a transparency to the pen, is you go back in and it like can create lines within the shadows, so you get some more depth right there, more detail. Instead of just a flat shadow, you get these little fur lines, and then it just extends out to the other tones of color. So it's getting there. I'm kind of happy with this. It's not too bad. And then the tail, we'll just keep going with those little flick of lines. And fur is like I'm trying to visualize what kind of fur it is. I can't get too detailed because I'm trying to move along here. I'm not going to render the fur out like too detailed for every little flick. That's going to take forever. You could always come in to a photo editing program like GIMP or Photoshop. You could just select a texture that you like and overlap that, and then just erase the outlines that go beyond the character, and then you'll have a texture for your fur. I could have did that with this one, but I just want to show you how I would create fur if I was drawing this on paper, because then you wouldn't have any method for drawing texture necessarily if you're just doing it by hand. So there we go. I think that's getting there. Just a little bit more, and then get some in the face. And for these nostrils, we'll just add a little detail to those. It's easy to get carried away with this stuff. I don't want to overdo it. So there we go. We're almost finished with the trickiest part, which are all the fine little details. Now if I had a ballpoint pen instead of a a computer pen, there's such a lot more control with the real pen in your hand. With this, there's a little bit of a clumsiness to it, but for computer art it works. So we're just gonna add some lines to this and give it a little dimension for the lasso, the bridle, or whatever they call it. I only rode a horse when I was a kid, summer camp, and that was fun. I always remember that. I wanted to ride a horse in 2020, but the whole lockdown situation with the virus put a damper on that plan. But that's the thing, if you want to accomplish something in your life, don't wait around too long. Start working on it, even if it's like one little thing, and just keep tinkering away at it little by little, and eventually your project will start to develop into what your dream is. So we're just adding these little lines here, and that'll give it a little more texture. I mean, this saddle is not perfect, but what are you gonna do? It's no big deal. So I just want to be careful I don't overdo these lines for the horn. If it gets too dark, you'll lose the sense of the horn altogether. face in there, and the general look of the TaunTaun. Just add a little more shadow there, and the forehead isn't going to have too much shadow, so I don't want to overdo it. Yeah, trying to get the shadow where you want it is a tricky thing. It's not always obvious at first. Sometimes you have to step back and really look at how things are progressing with your drawing. So let's get in there. And then we'll just add a little more shadow. I think I have the shadow where I want it. What I'd like to do is get some highlights in there, and I'll just bring the white pen and just go back in there and get some highlights. These are like reflective highlights, so they're going to be really bright. Then we'll come back in and add more subtle highlights, not so bright and shiny. See, when they're like little specks of light, that signifies it's like a shiny surface. When it's more smooth, that means the surface is not as shiny, like the texture. And then stuff like that. See, I don't want to put too many highlights on the belly, because that's usually in shadow. That's what I didn't do. Add a little more shadow to the belly, because the belly is supposed to be hidden by the light, not quite as exposed to the light. It's underneath. So I'll just add a little more shadow to that. That's not too bad. The texture of the saddle. Darn it. Texture of the saddle. Let me go in there and add some color to it. See how this works. It looks a little weird. Not too bad, but I don't know. So we're going to come back in with the white, and we're going to reduce the opacity down even further. And we're going to increase the size. Actually, let me increase the opacity. That's a little too light. It's going to take me forever. So what we're doing here is just adding the highlights. The highlights will be on the left side. Because the light source is on the left. see if you want to bring something forward towards you, you tend to add the highlights. If you want to push it further back, as far as shading, then you would not add the highlights in that area. Like for this part here, I want to be careful. This part is exposed to light a little bit, but not quite, because it's supposed to be behind the light. But yeah, there's a lot to it. A lot of thought to how you want to approach it with the lighting. And then there's reflective light that is on the back of something, where you draw the light on the back of it. So it's like actually in shadow, but yet there's light reflecting from something else onto the shadow itself. That's how you end up with light on the back of a shadowed area, which is really unique about your drawing. It really brings it out. It gives it a lot more realism. So we're almost finished with this main part. Contrast is really the key here, though. And we have to add some snow and stuff like that. So here we'll just make sure his nose is highlighted, because this is standing forward. We don't want to highlight that part as much. We want this to really move forward. So we're just going to highlight that area. Then his eyebrows, you definitely want to highlight those. His ears, not too much. You get out a little reflective light there. And his horns especially. Be a little too much. So one thing to break it up is to add a little detail that way. Yeah, that's a little too much. So we'll go back in and reduce that. It's a little too heavy. Varied up a little, so it's not all one tone. It's a little better. So I think that's just about it. I'm going to come back in and really add a lot more contrast to everything. I'm just going to add a heavy shadow here and see if this helps it out a little. here underneath a bigger shadow. So that's about the idea of it all. It's not perfect, but it's not too bad. I'm trying to think of what else I can do. This is like a rough cartoon version, but what are you gonna do? So that's about it. We're going to come back in, and then we're just going to add snow and stuff like that. I'll bring it into my other program because you get different effects through that. So let me jump into that, but then we'll add the contrast and stuff like that. So here, let me just add a little more here for the shadow. This will really make it stand out so it's not so flat. If your shadows are not enough, don't have enough contrast, they'll look flat. But by increasing the range of dark to light, you can really bring out your drawing. So that's what I'm working on here. It's not too bad. It needs some work. The saddle looks pretty rough. I'm trying to figure out what I can do here. Maybe just darken it. Because if it's coming too forward, it's gonna look a little weird. I think that helped a little bit. Alright, we're going to jump over to the GIMP program and then see if I can finish it up and render it out. And thanks for watching. This is Frank Soodle. I've been drawing since I've been 3 years old, and if you go to DeviantArt F Soodle, you'll see a lot of my progress over the years, where I started off in kindergarten. Before that, 3 years old, I connected the dots and stuff like that, and then I have a lot of drawings over the years of how I've progressed. At some point I feel like I've just reached a point where I'm satisfied, and I'm not trying to improve my skill level too much, so maybe that's something I need to eventually advance with more techniques and stuff like that. But as long as I'm having fun drawing, that's all I really care about at this point. And that's really the thing I love about drawing. You just forget about everything else and just focus on what you're doing, and it's a lot of fun. So that's it for now. If you're watching on YouTube, feel free to comment, subscribe, and give a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. Okay, so continuing on, here we have the TaunTaun in the program called GIMP. It's like Photoshop. And when I closed off the outlines, I noticed it was in like a brown shade, which I'm surprised to see that. But what I'll do here is just erase some of the thicker lines here. I don't have to erase them, but me just go in and just lighten them up a little. That didn't do very much. So what I'll do here is just duplicate that layer. I'm just going to put that underneath there. Now this is how we started right here. Then we progressed to this. See, this would be perfect for like a cell animated film. Right there, those simple colorations, no shadows, nothing. Then we just add this layer for like a drawing, or if you're going to use the stop frame animation that I use for City Rot and my other animated films, you could absolutely have this much texture in your cartoon. So what I'd like to do is just save that layer there and save this layer here, just so I could go back and look at it. But what I'll do now is merge the line with that, because what I'll do now is go into filters, generic, dilate, and I'm just going to reduce the thickness of those lines. For some reason it didn't work. So what I'll do, I'll select the TaunTaun. I gotta actually that's weird. Threshold. That's weird. Cancel that out. So there's the highlights. I must not color the highlights in. That's why they're not doing anything there. Alright, so I gotta deselect and manually fill in those highlights for the eyes. I forgot to do that. So we're going to go 100% opacity and just go right in there. There we go. Now we have a solid texture, solid color. Alright, so next step, we want to select all of this tool here, select by color, is really pretty cool. Like automatically selects everything without a big hassle. Like the lasso tools, it's a bit more tricky. So go to generic and press dilate, and let's see, it should work this time. Let's see what it looks like. It's a pretty big file, so it's taking a little while. But let's take a look. What it'll do is reduce the thickness of those black lines, make it more like a illustration versus a line drawing, and it gives it a little more realism, since in real life you wouldn't see all these thick black lines surrounding a character or person or anything like that. So it's a neat little trick to really make it more realistic. I think that turned out great. That's good. I don't have to do it again. I could, and it'd be interesting to see, but I think that's perfect what I was going for. So that worked out good. The dilate tool. That's one of my favorite new tools. I never really understood the point of it until I really started to work more on this program. So one thing I do want to do is add some snow onto the TaunTaun. I always thought that was so cool. The TaunTaun had all this snow on them. So how do I want to do it? I'm going to add a separate layer. And actually I just have an idea now. Rather than I wonder how I should do this. I'll just fill in the blanks. I'll just go with let's go with that. So the snow would be on his head. It's kind of like all over the place, random. And the reason I have it on this layer is so I could come back and adjust it as I need. But the tricky thing about the snow is you want it to look like snow. Oops, I screwed that up. Yeah, it's kind of like snow a little bit. Looks like he's got like snow clumps all over him. That's not too bad. It's a little snowy. And then the saddle can have little snow chunks and stuff on it. Now the one thing I have to be careful about is with snow, it turns blue when it's in shadow most times. So let me see if I can adjust the snow. Yeah, that's kind of cool. It's kind of looking a little snowy. Just doing some random snow here. That was always so cool. It made it so much more realistic. When you saw the TaunTaun, you were like, oh wow, he's got snow all over him. So what I'll do here, let's see, I could select that white, and then with the blue, go in with like a blue, and then just shade it in. That's working. It's not too bad. I might just dump the snow all together. I'll see what happens. See, you don't want it too bright in certain areas like shadows, but we'll see what this looks like. I just gotta test it out. See, there's no snow there. I forgot. Maybe he brushed that leg off. So then we'll come in with this. See, snow's not going to be like, you wouldn't use like a deep shadow for snow, since it reflects a lot of light. So we're not going to overdo that. Well, let's take a look. I gotta zoom out. Yeah, that's not too bad. Let's see what it looks like without it. So what I could do, it looks a little rough with the blue. So let's say you don't like the blue as strong as it is. Just go into hue saturation, and then, yeah, I do kind of like that snow on there, but I don't like the blue as strong as it is, so we're just going to reduce it in half for the strength of the blue. Just go into saturation, so right about there is good. And then, if you don't like a snow in a certain spot, you just erase it. There we go, that's better. Yeah, that seems okay. Then what I'll do is just duplicate this here. This way I have a backup. I'll merge it down. And now I'm going to adjust the contrast. See how this turns out. It doesn't look like it needs a lot, but I could be wrong about that. That's weird. Sometimes the option doesn't appear. It's like, well, let's go already. Look at that. I did that twice and finally it appears. Jeez. Look at that. I didn't even want to do that. Reset. This is what we have here. See, like I said, it doesn't need a lot of contrast. You already put a lot into it. I think that's good right there. Maybe it's even too bright because it's going to be in the snow, and the snow would be kind of like lightening up the whole character. So just add a little bit more light than contrast. Let's see, is that good? Yeah, I like that. And then we'll compare it to the original. So yeah, it helped out a little bit. Just redo the contrast and lightness. And then what I'll do now is add some snow to the background. And the way I'll do that is to the color blue. So what I'll do, start off with just a basic shape, and we'll just go like this. Actually, let me go in with a texture rather than just that. Let me pick this. That looks interesting. So it's a snowy day on Hoth and the Wampa. Look at that. That's so cool. Look at the texture you create with that. That's awesome. Look how fast that created like a really cool look to this background. That was really cool. Oh my gosh. I'm surprised. Yeah, that looks really neat. And as I was saying, the blue is the shadow of snow. If you look in nature during the daytime, look at the shadow of the snow, and it's usually like a blue color. It's pretty neat. So then, what can I do with this? So yeah, shadows. So there's that. Actually, we'll go with a darker blue. There we go. We gotta shrink this thing to a smaller scale. And then we'll just add a shadow underneath. Wow, that's a really neat brush. Just add a little more shadow there. Yeah, it's a cool brush. I like it. Almost like ice he's standing on. But yeah, if I could do this picture again, of course I'd have him standing more upright. He's kind of like squatting down a little bit. But yeah, that's cool. I like that shadow. And I'll just extend this a little bit. So that looks about it. Oh, you know, it'd be cool if I had like the snow beast standing in the background there. Maybe I can do that really quick. So before I leave, let me just highlight this really quick. And then add some of this. Actually, cancel that. This will be like a cool texture. Let's see how that affects it. That's kind of cool. That's tricky though, because you don't want to overdo it. The reason it's tricky is you don't want to overdo the you don't want to lose your highlights, all the work you put into your highlights, so you just want to be a little light with it. Yeah, that's cool. What a really cool texture. That's about it. We're almost finished here. I think I got the look of a tauntaun. It's not perfect or anything, but it's like a cartoon version. And then this tool here, it's called the burn tool. This is always a fun tool to play around with. If you don't like if you feel something's too bright, you just go back in and it'll darken it. It's a really neat tool. So like if you press on that one area repeatedly, see how that's getting darker there? It doesn't paint onto it, it just darkens the color in that area. Really neat. That's called the dodge tool, the burn tool, I'm sorry. What dodge does, that will create highlights or lighten the shade up for that area. But this was a fun project. I enjoyed it. It's definitely not 100% of what I was going for, but I'll say I got about 80% of what I planned. The legs were the biggest part. It's funny though. It's kind of like a funny looking tauntaun. But I think I got the the idea of it, the feel of it. And then with the background, we'll just blur it up a little. And what that'll do is just blur it up a little bit so it's not so sharp. And the last thing we'll do is add some color to this. So what I'll do is I'll highlight the character again. Where's the highlight? That's weird. There we go. So to add color, I think maybe like a little bit of light shade here should be cool. We're going to go to the regular brush again. Just add a little variation to it, nothing too in depth. Let's just vary it up a little bit. And then with this, just select none and really expand the size to full. And then just go here with this. There we go. Wow, that's cool. Just to give it like a maybe some light source on the left there. So that's about it. And then last but not least, we'll just add our name to this. And then we'll zoom in. Go down here. Right about here is good. Wow, look at that delay. Oh my gosh. What the heck happened? That's pretty bad. The line here is way off. That's why the Krita is so much better for drawing. Krita really did a great job with the lines. GIMP is more of a editing program. It's got potential, but you got to really finesse with the buttons to get it just the way you want it. See what I mean? That's terrible. Plus the huge lag makes it difficult. But that's about it. Not too much more I can do with this. And then just do 2020. It was a rough year. There were some good things in it, but it was pretty rough. Very challenging. Alright, so that's the TaunTaun. Thanks for watching. I might go back in and adjust it a little bit, but thanks for watching, and feel free to subscribe, like, and comment, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever you like. Thanks a lot.